Hello again and welcome back to my channel. My name is Patrick Allen. I'm a licensed realtor with Keller Williams Southern Arizona. And in today's video, we'll be discussing real estate. There exists a certain point in every real estate market cycle, generally near or perhaps just after the market bottom, where it seems like there's only ever more bad news being reported in the media. And in a post-pandemic economy categorized by low inventory, a generational crash in buyer demand due to affordability concerns, and with the industry forced to undergo major change after a landmark federal court verdict, it seems like every new headline only offers more data to suggest that the market will remain pretty much stuck where it is currently for the foreseeable future. After all, the economic cycles which drive real estate booms and busts take a long time to take their full effect, and apart from a single notable exception, when given enough time, the free market always tends to self-correct over time, and all things are eventually brought back into balance via the relationship between a local market's supply and demand. And yet, that one single exception can, when it chooses, wield a considerable power to implement changes in a more immediate way, compensating for or completely nullifying a perceived weakness in the market, and potentially altering trend lines like home pricing or overall market affordability essentially overnight. Now, this wild card I'm referencing is none other than good old-fashioned government intervention. For better or worse, federal and local governments possess considerable leverage for affecting and monkeying around with the economic inputs, be it through introducing new legislation, offering new tax breaks, or providing grant funding to encourage construction growth of the market. And for property owners across the state of Arizona, a rather recent news headline might offer some good news at last. Recently signed into law by Governor Katie Hobbs in May of this year and taking full effect across the state as of January 2025, two new housing bills both seek to provide more affordable housing options to Arizona residents by safeguarding property owners' abilities to build onto and develop their single-family zone lots. Introducing House Bill 2720, better known as the Casita bill, and House Bill 2721, aka the Middle Housing Bill. Both are aimed at providing more affordable housing units throughout Arizona, as well as restricting NIMBYism by enacting regulations which would prevent a nosy neighbor type from throwing up future roadblocks in an attempt to prevent your legal right to add more rentable units to your property, provided the property meets certain criteria. And so what exactly do these two housing bills allow for? And in what areas around Metro Tucson is this regulation likely to apply? And what does it mean for the long-term projections of your rental property portfolio? Today's video explores all that and more. And so without any further delay, let's peel back some of these layers and see if we can make sense of it. Tackling each in numerical order, let's first look at the Casita bill, House Bill 2720. In many ways, this bill mirrors a similar piece of legislation passed by the city of Tucson in 2021, which has now been expanded to provide additional protections for property owners and now affects most major cities across the state of Arizona. Prior to this new bill taking effect, most residential zoning codes allow for only a single ADU or additional dwelling unit to be added to an existing lot, which I'm going to go ahead and continue to call them casitas for the rest of this video, as that's the generally preferred name for an ADU here in the Old Pueblo. Now, while you could generally add a casita unit to any residential lot, provided it conforms with existing building codes, this new House bill expands upon that to allow as many as 3 casita units per lot. Under the new regulations, at least one casita, as well as a separate detached casita, should be feasible to be built on any single-family zone property. And it might be the case that a third casita could be added as well, provided the third additional unit must cater to affordable housing, which they define as a rental rate that is affordable for a resident making less than 80% of the area's median income. And speaking of those property owner protections, the bill further states that a city or municipality may not prohibit permitting and construction of these casita units, nor require undue red tape like requiring the tenant to be related to the owner or insisting that certain amenities like extra parking or in-unit kitchens be added to these new casita units. House Bill 2721 takes a very similar approach but aims at ground-up development projects rather than simply adding additional casitas to an already developed lot. Prior to this legislation, it was generally not permissible to build multi-unit properties in most residential zones. As an example, within the city of Tucson, 2, 3, and 4 unit properties may only exist in urban, commercial, or office housing zones. And as of the publishing of this video, it's generally the case that only a single casita can be added to an existing structure within a rural or suburban housing zone, if one can be added at all. And new construction of small multifamily properties will not pass permitting in these areas. And so similarly, House Bill 2721 allows for this type of middle housing development for all residential zones across the state of Arizona, provided the city meets certain criteria, which we will discuss later. With this new housing bill in effect, any single-family lot can have its own detached single-family dwelling, but further states that a city or municipality may not discourage the development of 2 to 4 unit and or townhome complexes as part of this bill. Mirroring its counterpart 2720, there is also language in the middle housing bill that prevents future restrictions on a developer's ability to build and sell middle housing options, such as requiring owner occupancy for one of the units, or by disallowing owners from advertising these units as for rent. And so, does that mean that any property you own in the state of Arizona has now overnight become more valuable due to your new ability to further develop the lot? Well, not so fast. Both House Bills 2720 and 2721 apply statewide, but only to cities with more than 75,000 in population, which means that the entirety of the city of Tucson will have these changes go into effect next year, whereas the town of Oro Valley or Sarita, as well as unincorporated areas of the Vail and Catalina foothills areas of town, do not meet this standard. Now, it's also worth noting here that although Governor Hobbs has signed both of these House bills into effect as of May 2024, that full enforcement of these new policies will not begin until January of 2025. And further information on permitting and code enforcement is still being worked out in various government departments. Okay, so now that we understand what the House bills say and what they don't cover, what even is the big deal? In what ways will adding more smaller rentable units contribute to a more healthy housing market in the future? Well, just as it is with the initial bill approved in the city of Tucson, these new zoning code changes will provide greater affordability in housing for both homeowners and potential tenants. By incentivizing, or merely in this case allowing for, construction of more affordable rental units, renters will soon have more options for housing, particularly on the lower end of the income spectrum. Smaller casitas or townhome options in attractive areas throughout Tucson will serve as a viable alternative to apartment and condo housing, which is currently the only affordable option for a certain renter class. Meanwhile, homeowners will gain the ability to rent out a portion of their lot to create cash flow via rental income. Any extra money they are able to bring in from their new casitas can help offset rising housing costs in a way that is more tax efficient than simply earning more money at your job or income and paying for those costs out of pocket. Not only that, but particularly once the middle housing bill truly catches on, we should see an increase in the housing stock of 2 to 4 unit small multifamily properties, making it more viable than ever to find properties for house hacking, even in excellent downtown urban locations. More broadly, these housing bills unapologetically take the side of Arizona property owners. The legislation prevents undue restrictions from being placed on a homeowner, allowing them the right to choose whether and to what degree it makes sense for them to develop their properties in search of higher income generation potential. And after multiple rounds of bipartisan debate and support, these new House bills will also include common sense restrictions on rental usage while continuing to allow for a pro-business and pro-property owner rights approach that Arizona has been famous for. And I, for one, think this is great news. Per the governor's website, Governor Hobbs praised the bipartisan legislation that will expand housing options and help mitigate the effects of rising costs for everyday homeowners. Further, these efforts combine with more affordable housing units, maximizing the use of federal tax credits to make housing more affordable, and providing mortgage assistance for first-time home buyers via the Arizona is Home program. Arizona is set to tackle the biggest economic challenges facing today's potential home buyer, which of course, a general lack of affordability in housing across the 2020s. But what do you think? Will this lead to more housing options or just more competition from out-of-state investors competing with regular Arizona citizens? Does allowing property owners the right to build multiple casitas really provide the best solution to the current affordability challenges? Or will the population requirement make this sound really good on paper, perhaps not so likely to make a meaningful impact in our battle towards greater affordability? Let me know what you think in the comments section, and without getting unnecessarily political, I will take the position of a real estate economist and say that the best route forward for correcting an unpredictable inflation in housing is not to implement monetary policy which would destroy the demand side, but instead to provide a more affordable supply to the market. This makes it easier to make a new deal make sense for any given would-be home buyer, encourages more real estate purchases, and an overall healthier real estate industry. But until these new bills go into effect in 2025, we'll have to sit here and speculate as to what impact these new policies are likely to have. So make sure you stay pinned to my channel to be kept up to speed with the goings-on of the Arizona real estate market in the meantime. We'll see you on the next one.